in Seattle, and you need to buy or sell a home, we'll be right there for you. Because we're the realtors that you can trust. So go to rodanddowndown.com.
You're listening to The Ron and Don Show on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Hey, you guys, what's going on? Welcome to episode 855 now of the Ron and Don Show, and we are live in the Les Schwab studio.
What is up, Ron and Don Nation?
Hey, coming up on the Ron and Don Show, let's talk about the Seahawks, because we won! Well, we won the draft, didn't we?
I don't know.
How about those Mariners right now? First place, are you kidding me? Of course, by the time you hear this, we may be in last place.
Yeah.
But at this time, we're in first place. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Also want to talk about the Rock Hall, some of the nominations, and also how come some bands, like I didn't know this, when Kiss got in, Ace Frehley got kicked out of the band early because he had some issues. And so the other band members didn't like him. They booed him out. He actually went into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when they went in. But what about the guy that ended up playing for Kiss a lot longer? I don't even know his name, but now he wants into the Rock Hall. Should he get in the Rock Hall because he was in the band, right? Now that they're officially retired, and we all know that they'll be out next year with another tour where they're never going on tour again. Cher started that with the Believe tour, and I think she stayed on tour. I think she's still touring.
And
My last tour, and here we are 30 years later.
Madonna's doing that now.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about this. Let's talk about flying. Let's talk about flight attendants. And flight attendants say that they're pretty worried when it comes to our behavior up in the friendly skies that aren't so friendly anymore. I have to say, when I used to get on a plane, I would kind of mind my own business. I get on a plane right now. I look around. I see whose ass I'm going to kick, and then I see who I'm going to team up with. What about you?
I'm paying more attention to that as well, because they say these violent acts and people freaking out are on the rise. I'm trying to figure out what the uptrend is. So I think,
I know.
like you've always had like anxiety. If you have anxiety and you're in a plane and you basically have no control over how to steer the plane, whatever, I get that your anxiety increases, but the lashing out part, I guess if flying's not for you, then don't fly. Like you can take a train, you can take a bus, you could drive somewhere. So you're self-selecting to use this form of transportation, and so the people freaking out more, I don't know what why it increased.
Now, the article I read, it's because Americans got bigger. And your seating capacity became small. Well, your seating capacity got bigger, which means the seats became smaller. Think about this: when you go to have you been to a Mariner game this year?
I have.
Well, was it a packed Mariner game?
One of them was packed, or like my seating area was packed.
You go to a Mariner game, and it's a lot of big guys and big dads and big bros like us that are at the game. And sometimes sitting next to folks, especially when they've been fueled with alcohol, can be a real at least I found, and it makes the game less enjoyable. That's why when you go to a Mariner game or you go to a Seahawk game, they have a 1-800 number that you can call, and if you see something, you say something. We've called people before in our section, and they are gone. They pull you in, and it's hard to do that on a plane. So here you have flight attendants. I don't know if you know this or not, but I just traveled to Iceland, and I'm sitting back there with my friend Mary. She's 76 years old, and boy, did she like to have a few hot toddies.
That's a good way to fly to Iceland.
Her husband had died. They were always going to go on this trip to Iceland. So she said, you know what, I'm going to go. So she's sitting there. She's having a drink for him. She's having a drink for herself.
Good for her.
She said, what about you? I said, well, I don't really drink when I'm flying or traveling. She said, okay, I'll have one for you. So nonetheless, she got a little more animated, but she was still very fun. There are other people that, and it was like, she's sitting up in first class. I'd say she probably has 6-7 drinks up there, right? You put 6-7 drinks in the wrong person on an airline, that's going to be an issue. And I do have to say, when you look back and coach, and I know this from someone who's flying up front, when you look back there, I'm like, I can never sit back and coach again. I've saved every dollar and every dime. I got to find a way to fly up front, because I don't want to sit there and touch other people's legs, and I don't want their legs to touch mine.
But to my point though, you know that going in. Like,
I don't know that someone's going to be overserved like she was overserved. Like
That's fair.
Gave her too much
So
alcohol.
you think most of these people of the incidents are alcohol related?
Always.
Because like you'll see ones online of people that are just being jackasses. That like even before the plane's taken off, they like are screaming about their luggage, or they are banging the seat in front of them. I don't know.
Airlines make too much money selling that alcohol, and there's no way they're gonna.
You're probably right.
I'm
sure that accounts for some of it.
The other thing is when you get stuck on a plane and they're not communicating to you about what's going on, that's infuriating to a lot of people, especially when you sit there and you're out on the tarmac and sometimes you're sitting there for hours and you can't get an explanation. That's sometimes because the pilots don't have an explanation, because sometimes the tower's not speaking to them because they're dealing with another plane crash that just happened in Washington, D.C.
It's a fair point, but it's I don't know. It's scary, and I do scan like you do and say, hey, if I got to take my shoelaces off and bind some dude behind his back.
Is that what you would do?
Absolutely. That's what was in the article.
Is that you have?
Passengers got to get a guy together and they bound him with shoelaces.
Yeah, they say that a lot of flight crews now have
zip ties, tape, they
have all this stuff. So anyway, yeah, I think airlines do have to look at that and say, are we over-serving people? And maybe we put too many seats back here, and it's just it can be rough sitting back there, especially.
I don't think you're not saying that it justifies the violence, though.
As long as I'm sitting up front, that's all I care about. I just want to sit in first class. If they want to be violent in the back, like, I don't care. Just don't come use my bathroom. More in a minute. All right, guys, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. One of the coolest things that Ron and I ever got to do is to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame
that's cool.
In Ohio. And
they used to have this program for radio shows where they would pay for you to go to the show, and they built out a studio in the I M Pei designed pyramid that's there in Cleveland. And they said, and we'll give you a hotel room, a meal stipend, and you can broadcast from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you'll get some special access to exhibits in exchange for so many X number of mentions and copy points explaining the Rock Hall. And so we took them up on that once, and we went to Cleveland.
And a lot of us have been to DC, go to the Smithsonian. A lot of what they have is not on display. I was really surprised. We talked to a gentleman by the name of Howard that runs the Rock Hall there at the time. And I think when we were there, the one display that I remember is Jimi Hendrix living room.
Yeah, Jimi Hendrix living room.
With his original furniture and his guitar and his amp and all that. That was super cool. Seeing some of the Zooropa cars that you and I saw down in Tacoma when U2 was down there. Remember the cars would hang from the ceiling? So they had those in the Rock Hall. The cars were hanging from the ceiling that I thought was super cool. And then also when you see like any of the outfits that the Beatles were wearing, like, man, those were small guys. They're about the size of the Beetle. No wonder they called themselves a Beetle. I can't believe. And then you see some of the Prince stuff, and you're like, he's even smaller than the Beatles were.
Tiny.
You just go around and you see their outfits. They're like, how did they squeeze into those? And I wonder if they were still around, if they still could. The thing that really moved me is there was on the third floor of the Rock Hall. They'll do for like a year, I think, Ron. Maybe for a year. They say, we're going to do a special exhibit. We're going to change it every year. When we were there, it was the John Lennon exhibit, right? And so they went to his son, Julian. Is it Julian? Julian. And they collected some of the guitars. Some of the guitars were there.
Sean's his other kid.
Yeah. Yoko Ono had provided lots of things. And then they had this, would you call it like a big vacuum tube? Inside the vacuum was a brown paper bag with a number written on it, and there was a pair of glasses. Do you remember this?
Yep.
The glasses, the brown bag was there, and then there was a phone and a note. And the note said, he came back to me in a brown paper bag. And this was Yoko Ono writing about John Lennon. And so the glasses with brain matter and blood were still in the glasses. The bag was still there. And her point was, no matter who you are, you could be the most famous person in the world. No matter who you are, when it comes to gun violence, all of us can be victims here. Then there was a phone, and they said, when the phone rings, answer it. because it's Yoko Ono calling, and she would call into the exhibit, they say once a month. I was standing over there for a long, long time.
She would talk to you about
hoping I would get a call from Yoko Ono, and she never called me. Right. And then I picked the phone. They're like, "What are you going to do?" And I'm like, "I'm going to call out," but there was no buttons to call out. So you're kind of stuck. And then I'm wondering, I wonder if Yoko really calls. Howard said that Yoko really calls that phone. Whoever answers it, she'll sit there and she'll have a conversation with them about John Lennon, which I thought was really cool. Here's what I didn't know. Because along with the Rock and Roll Hall, you have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And is it the Rock and Roll Hall that decides who goes in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I think Howard said it was not. I think it was.
Well, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the building in Cleveland, is not the same entity. They do not vote on who becomes inducted into Rock and Roll. So like this exhibit you just talked about, you can have an exhibit for someone who's not a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's just a famous exhibit. But they like to feature people that are members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The voters for induction are an entirely different organization, and they vote independent of the people at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And so there's a bit of there's a think piece that you sent me on here where it's like, there doesn't seem to be a lot of consistency in how this works, because bands usually have a lot of members. Like U2 is one of the only bands that has the same 4 members for the whole band, except for this last stint at the Spheres where Larry Mullen got injured and they brought in another drummer to replace him. But like you go through, even the Beatles had a different member at the beginning with Pete Best in the drums. So they're like, well, how come some bands where you can have a guy that played on one album and he'll be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member, whereas other bands, like you referenced Kiss, they just want the 4 original members, and then people that played after that. The other one they cite was Black Sabbath. Like, we want Ozzy to go in there, and they go, why isn't Ronnie James Dio, who sang after Ozzy, he should be a part of the Black Sabbath lineup? And so they said, basically, it's a critique of going, it's unclear why some bands get more members in than other bands. And especially if you're one of those people that played in the band, and Ronnie James Dio, who's passed away, but like, if he's like, wait a minute, I was in Black Sabbath. Yeah. Like, I didn't make Ozzy leave the band. And so, or someone can die. They talk about Leonard Skinner, where someone dies and then Derek Trucks comes into the band. So Leonard Skinner's in the band, but Derek Trucks is not inducted, even though he played in Leonard Skinner for 10 years. It's a really interesting question. And I think maybe there should be some clarification on how this breaks down. I think if you're in the band and you are on a record and you have some songwriting credit, I think you should be inducted. If you're just a hired gun, like for Kiss, a lot of times Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons wrote all the songs. They hired the other musicians. If you're just a hired gun and you do no songwriting, I guess maybe that you could say you aren't a member of the band in the same way. What do you think?
I like Dolly Parton. She's like, they're like, we're running out of people put in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
She's rock and roll.
We're going to throw you in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Because she said, I don't even have a rock and roll album. She said, I will not go in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
She's rock and roll.
So then she went out and she made a rock and roll album. And she's like, okay, now you can put me in the Hall of Fame. That's kind of awesome, you guys. It's the Ron and Don Show. Why wouldn't it be more on the other side of this? All right, you guys, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. He's Ron, I'm Don. Don't forget, if you need us, ronanddon.com, and we'll sit down together. Unless you want to stand. It's up to you.
So you can do your own thing.
Yeah, you'll get tired, though. We go 45 minutes on a sit-down. So if you need help on your real estate journey, please reach out. And also, don't forget Les Schwab Tire Centers. The food drive's going on right now.
Yeah, so take non-perishable food to a Les Schwab. If you go to QFC, you can also do a virtual bag of groceries right there at the checkout, or you can do a cash donation. This is a time of the year when there's a lot of food insecurity. Food prices have skyrocketed. A lot of families are getting out of school here soon, and that's when they rely on some of the school meals to help feed the kids, and that goes away in the summertime. time. So this is a time if you've been fortunate to help out with the Les Schwab food.
Yeah, when my son went to elementary school, we would go, and I still do this, and not with him, but with some of my other friends. There's a local food bank here in Ballard, and they would help prepare food for kids and families. And it was really interesting what they would do, because they didn't want other kids to know, because sometimes there's shame in this, and there shouldn't be shame when it comes to insecurity. We should all hold each other up. But what we would do is we would take these second backpacks and we just fill them up with food. And then you would send the child home with their backpack, and then they would have a second backpack full of food for the week. So that way that they could have lunches. That's what Food Lifeline is all about. That's what Les Schwab is doing. And last year we raised $35,000, 3 tons of food. I think we can do more. There's 83 stores to serve you. So just stop by Les Schwab, drop some non-perishable food off. Or if you want to make a cash donation, you can stop by a QFC, or you can do it online right now with our friends at Cairo 7 Cares. So, hey, before we get out of here, we rail a little bit on sports when things aren't going our way. I think we still miss the Seattle Supersonics
all the time.
I think Todd Leiweke brought the hockey team back here so that we could, at some point, get the Supersonics back. What is up with the NBA and not saying, hey, especially when you look at the Kraken. The Kraken, for the last 4 years, those stands have been full. They've actually, Todd Leiweke, who and I love this, said, hey, we haven't had the best product, but still our stands are full. So what we're going to do next year is we're going to take some money off the tickets. There's no one else in the NHL doing this.
It's the ticket price.
And he's not saying we're doing that because we have to. He's saying we're doing that because we want to. But when they rebuilt kind of the old Key Arena, they're like, we're going to build it for hockey and for basketball. And it seems like when the old commissioner died that it would pave a way, because it seemed like he didn't like Seattle. So here we are thinking Adam Silver is going to get this done. When does this get done?
I think that what I've read is a couple pieces of the puzzle they needed was for the Boston Celtics deal to go through, because that would set the new high water mark on the valuation.
Oh, I didn't.
Because what happens is if the owners in the league vote to expand, they have to have some number to base it off of, because the new city actually pays a licensing fee that goes to all the other owners. So they get an expansion fee. Mm-hmm. And so they need that number, because the last number they had, I think, was Steve Ballmer buying the Clippers. Yeah. And they thought that the Celtics would be worth more than that, which they were. Yeah. And so now that they have that new high water mark, they have that licensing fee that they know that all the owners will get. And then they also need to balance the conferences. So what I believe is going to happen is if they vote to expand, it'll be Las Vegas gets a team and Seattle gets a team. It'll be weird because Vegas, one of these teams will have to be in the Eastern Conference. Mm-hmm. So either Las Vegas plays in the East, which is weird, or Seattle plays in the East, which is even weirder, or they reconfigure conferences, which the legacy teams don't want to do, because you have these rivalry teams in your conference that have been there all the time. If you remember, the Seattle Seahawks swapped conferences, divisions. So the NFC to AFC West, and then they swapped them over to the NFC West when the NFL expanded. So it can be done, but it'll just be, you would think a team like Oklahoma or Detroit or someone that's kind of in the Midwest, Dallas, could be either in the West or the East, but we'll see. So I think the road is paved to get that team if they want it.
Yeah. All right. Let's switch real quick. Seattle Seahawks. I know you follow the Seahawks, kind of the home team. I know that you follow the Raiders because we used to work for them. Now Pete Carroll's there. Tom Brady's there. It's a very interesting story to watch. And then also, I know that you watch the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix, who I wish the Seahawks would have selected last year. We had a chance to watch him here at Oregon when other people didn't get to watch him. And even though they lost to the Ravens, I went back last year and I watched the Broncos live play the Ravens. Bo Nix is a very, very special player. He has the right coach. Who are you more excited about after the draft? Your Denver Broncos, which is your family team, the Raiders, which is kind of our away team, or back here at home, the Seattle Seahawks, where it looks like Mike McDonald is building the Ravens 2.0 is what it looks like when you look at some of his selection.
I think it's difficult for me to get much excitement right now for the Seahawks because I don't know if we have a marquee quarterback. If there's any sport where it comes down to one player, it's the NFL.
Yep.
And so the quarterback position, I don't even know who our quarterback is right now. And that's a problem. So I think watching a team who you know who the quarterback is, so I guess I'm interested, I'm intrigued to see what Pete does in Las Vegas with Geno Smith and this new running back out of Idaho.
His name is Sam as our quarterback. Sam. Say it with me. Sam
Darnold. Yeah. So
who won 14 games last year.
He did win a lot of games. So
14-2.
Maybe we'll
he came to the Seahawks Stadium and carved us up.
Maybe we'll have some good fortune with that. We'll have to see.
And Milroe from Alabama, they're going to bring him out 3, 4, 5 plays a game.
Sure.
They're probably going to recreate the tush push. I hope everybody does the tush push. And I also think on the defensive side of the ball, if the offense is allowed to push people's tushes, you should be able to do the same thing on the other side. You should be able to push their tush back. Do you know what I mean?
Push the defensive tush or the offensive tush?
If I'm a thick linebacker, right? If I'm the Mike linebacker, which is a position that I used to play, and then I'm behind a defensive player and we're going to tush push, I should be able to take that big old 325-pound tush, and I should be able to push on the defensive side because that's what they're doing on the offensive side.
What advantage does that give you? Because you can just slide off and make a tackle.
1,000-pound of men. No, because they're all diving. It's 3, 4, 5, 6 inches. There's no way that linebacker is going to go over the top and tackle anyone. So what you have to do in the same way that the quarterback is being pushed by the defensive ends that come in behind to push him, to propel him.
No, I get it.
To be able to do the same thing when you submarine the player on the other side.
Well, I think you can, but the defensive players are trying to go low. So the reason why the push works from the offensive side is they're trying to remain up high.
No, the reason you can't push from the defensive side is because it's illegal, because they don't want players getting hurt. So I don't understand what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and I don't even know what the gander is. My grandmother always said this. You should be able to push tush on both sides.
I'm not going to push back on you.
Oh.
I think there's a reason why it doesn't work.
And then finally, the Mariners, at the time of our broadcast, they are in first place right now. They've won 17 games. And they're actually hitting the baseball through the marine layer. How is this happening? I want to know your thoughts.
My thoughts are when you arrive at the game 20 minutes late, have more than one gate open.
Yep.
I am calling out the Mariners. I paid for my ticket.
Yep.
I couldn't find parking. I show up a little bit late. And you bring it down to one gate open? What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
It was really disheartening. The fans deserve to get into the stadium more quickly. They really did.
Better food we'll finish with this. Better food at the Kraken game, the Seahawks game, or Mariner game? Better food.
Boy, the Kraken have some good food. Kraken game is some good.
Yeah. What do you like, Matt?
The Kraken?
Everything.
The slider.
No, the dumplings. They have dumplings there.
I haven't had the dumplings.
The dumplings are pretty good.
Okay. I could really do without smelling garlic fries.
The garlic fries are powerful.
On a Sunday. And it's because when we worked it was called the Network Associates Coliseum. We called it the Net Ass when we were working for the Raiders and we were the sideline reporter. The whole stadium just felt like a big garlic thing. And boy, if you had a hangover the night before and you're walking through the stadium and Ricky Henderson is over there having a few pops, getting it on, it was not a pleasant smell. And when I go to a Seahawks game, and that's what I said.
You have a very sensitive nose.
Do you not like the garlic fries? Anyway, hey, that's great news though for the Mariners, the Seahawks, and you heard it first. The Sonics still aren't coming back.
Correct.
You heard it first here on the Ron and Don Show. Hey, you guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the Ron and Don Show. We appreciate it. Don't forget, we sell the sound. If you need us, just reach out.
Yeah, ronanddonsitdown.com. You can email me directly if you want to set up that sit down, ron@ronanddon.com.
Yeah, all right. If you need a buyer's playbook, a seller's playbook, we can help you with that. And don't forget, stop by Les Schwab Tire Center and drop off some non-perishable food. Or if you want to make a cash donation, you can go to Cairo 7 Cares, or you can also stop by QFC or go see the guys at Les Schwab. You can just stop by. They'll come running out, and you can leave money with the folks that way as well. All right. Our thanks to Les Schwab for being a great partner here at the Les Schwab Studios. Till next time, head up, shoulders back. You been listening to the Ron and Don Show only on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Ron and Don Show. Now keep your head up and your shoulders back and find some black belt courage.